The CEO's wife canceled my Christmas bonus on a stage in front of 400 people to make herself look powerful. What she forgot is that every dollar of her $9.2 million campaign ran on an engine I built and licensed. By the time the holiday lights went up downtown, her face was on every billboard, and every one of them went dark because of a single clause she never bothered to read. My name is Lucy Rivera. I am the Senior Marketing Data Strategist at Solstice Meridian Brands, and for the last 12 years, my job has been to find the truth hidden inside the noise. Solstice is famous for Christmas. We do not just sell products during the holidays, we are the holiday. We sponsor the downtown skating rinks. Our commercials are mini-movies, and our flagship stores look like gateways to the North Pole. It is an image built on magic, but it is paid for by math. My math. Today is the annual December Town Hall, the glittering centerpiece of our family culture. The ballroom at the downtown flagship is packed with 400 employees, all of us sipping lukewarm cider and trying not to inhale the chemical fog rolling off the fake snow machines. A 12-foot LED snowflake hangs suspended above the stage, pulsing with light. Our CEO, Graham Calloway, is finishing his usual speech about synergy and gratitude. He is a man who looks comfortable in a cashmere sweater, but profoundly uncomfortable with eye contact. I am sitting in the 5th row, flanked by my data team. We are the nerds, the numbers people, tucked between the flashy creative teams and the polished brand managers. We are waiting for the final slide. It is the only part of this 90-minute spectacle anyone actually cares about the Christmas bonus confirmation. In a company obsessed with vibes, the bonus is the one thing still tied directly to performance metrics. My metrics. And now, Graham says, his voice booming slightly too loud, I want to bring up the true visionary behind this year's holiday magic, the creative force who conceived our $9.2 million Winterglow campaign, my wife, Vivian Calloway. The applause is dutiful as Vivian glides onto the stage. She is all sharp angles and expensive wool, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun that probably cost more than my first car. She thrives on this. While Graham inherited the company, Vivian married into it, and she wields her Calloway name like a weaponized accessory. She takes the microphone, her smile bright and brittle. Thank you, Graham. Family. That is what Solstice is, and in a family, we have to support the dreamers. I glance at the presentation clicker in her hand, expecting her to advance to the slide. I have already seen the numbers. My department generated a 32% ROI on attributable ad spend this year. My bonus is contractual. It is locked. But Vivian does not click. She taps the microphone, a little feedback squeal cutting the air. In a family, she continues, her voice dropping into a tone of staged sincerity. We also have to be honest. We have to address resistance when we see it. We cannot let old thinking hold back our future. I feel a small, cold knot tighten in my stomach. This is not the script. We have poured our hearts into Winterglow, she says, gesturing to the giant logo behind her. But that vision has been met with friction. It has been met by teams who are underperforming, teams who seem resistant to creative leadership. A few people in the audience shift. This is not the family culture part of the speech. This is a corporate execution. Vivian's eyes scan the front rows, and they land, deliberately, on me. The data analytics department, she says, the words sharp and clear in the silent room. I keep my expression perfectly neutral. I can feel the heat of 400 pairs of eyes turning toward me. Beside me, Ben, my junior analyst, stops breathing. Vivian gives me an icy, sympathetic smile. Lucy Rivera, specifically, we value Lucy's history, but her Christmas bonus is being withheld this year. Dead. Silence. The only sound is the faint hum of the LED snowflake above her head. It is, Vivian continues, raising her voice to fill the vacuum. Pending her full alignment with our new creative direction, I watch my team disintegrate in my peripheral vision. Sarah is suddenly fascinated by her own shoes. Mark is picking at a cuticle on his thumb. Ben, poor Ben, catches my eye for a fraction of a second and mouths the words, "I am sorry," before looking away, his face crimson. I look toward the side of the stage. Graham is still there. He is staring at the exit sign. He adjusts his microphone pack, clears his throat, and says nothing. He is letting his wife do this. Vivian, fueled by the lack of resistance, doubles down. She is on a roll now. "We cannot be afraid to make brave leadership decisions," she proclaims. "Lucy is too attached to old data models. She is blocking innovation." Blocking innovation, that is what she calls it when I refuse to sign off on projections that show a 20% lift from influencers who do not exist. That is what she calls it when I point out that vibes do not pay the media invoices. "So," Vivian concludes, her smile widening as if she has just announced a charity donation, "we are reinvesting that bonus. We are putting it back into the Winter Glow campaign to ensure our vision is fully realized. The humiliation is a physical thing. It is a hot burn traveling up my neck, settling behind my ears. 12 years. 12 years I have worked here, often pulling 70-hour weeks to clean up the messes made by visionaries like her. I delivered record-breaking ROI during the retail apocalypse. I kept this company profitable while competitors folded. And now, I am being reduced to a morality lesson about alignment under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights. My face remains neutral. I learned long ago in this business that the first person to show emotion loses. But inside, I am incandescent. I remember a quiet conversation in a sterile conference room just 3 weeks ago. Owen Ramirez, our CFO, the only other person in the C-suite who speaks math, had called me in for an informal chat. He had closed the door. "Vivian is pushing the board hard on Winter Glow," he said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Her projections are optimistic. They are fictional," I replied, flatly. "They need your sign-off to look legitimate," Owen said. "You know that? You are the only one who can keep her projections honest, and right now, that makes you dangerous to her." He was not wrong. I was dangerous. But Vivian, in her arrogance, had just forgotten why. The silence in the ballroom stretches, becoming painful. A few people in the back, probably from Vivian's hand-picked creative agency, begin to clap. It is slow, hesitant. Then a few managers join in. Then a few more. Desperate to end the tension, the applause limps back to life, a pathetic, sputtering sound that fills the room with cowardice. Vivian beams, accepting it as validation. She turns, mission accomplished, and walks back toward her husband. And that is when I smile. It is not a polite smile. It is not the smile of a good sport or a team player. It is a flat, calm, dangerous smile that does not reach my eyes. Ben sees it and flinches, looking away again. This time in a different kind of fear. "You did not cancel my bonus." "Vivian, I think the words with perfect, cold clarity. You just paid the deposit on your own disaster." To understand the magnitude of the mistake Vivian Calloway made on that stage, you have to understand what Solstice Meridian brands looked like 10 years ago. It was not the glittering retail giant that dominates the holiday season today. It was a fading regional department store chain with dust on the shelves and a credit rating that made bankers nervous. Back then, I was not the senior marketing data strategist. I was not an employee at all. I was an external consultant operating under my own single-member LLC, a company I called Signal Harbor Analytics. I was 25 years old, hungry, and I had built something that nobody else had. I called it North Star, to the untrained eye. North Star looked like a complicated dashboard of graphs and heat maps, but under the hood, it was a proprietary optimization engine I had coded myself, night after night, fueled by cheap coffee and obsession. It did not just track clicks or views. It scraped distinct data points from inventory levels, local weather patterns, historical foot traffic, and competitor pricing to predict return on investment with terrifying accuracy. It could tell you that selling cashmere sweaters in Ohio would fail in November, but surge in December, while simultaneously predicting that a specific shade of red lipstick would sell out in Miami if you placed the ad on Instagram at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. Solstice Meridian hired Signal Harbor Analytics because they were desperate. They were planning a disastrous rebrand that involved changing their logo to a weird, abstract sun and pivoting to youth athleisure. Graham Calloway, who had just taken over from his father, was sweating through his shirts every day. I ran the numbers through North Star. The engine screamed red. I walked into Graham's office back when his door was always open, and I told him the truth. I told him that if he pivoted to athleisure, the company would be bankrupt by the third quarter. I told him that his core demographic did not want yoga pants. They wanted affordable luxury and a feeling of tradition. Graham listened. He scrapped the rebrand. He followed North Star's guidance to the letter, shifting the entire marketing budget to nostalgia-driven holiday campaigns targeted at specific zip codes. The result was not just a success, it was a resurrection. Sales jumped 40% in one quarter. The industry called it magically effective. They said Solstice had found its soul, but it was not magic, and it was not a soul. It was an algorithm running on a server in my apartment. That was the moment everything changed. Graham wanted me in-house. He wanted North Star to be the permanent brain of the company. I remember the negotiation vividly. I was sitting across from the then director of human resources, a tired man named Miller, who just wanted to get the paperwork signed so he could go to lunch. "We want you exclusive, Lucy," Miller had said. "Title, benefits, equity, but we need the tools you use. We need North Star integrated into our stack." I had agreed, but with one condition. I knew the value of what I had built. I told them I would license North Star to Solstice Meridian for as long as I was employed there, but the intellectual property remained with Signal Harbor Analytics. Miller had shrugged. He grabbed my standard consulting contract, the one I had written myself, and he literally copy-pasted the terms into my employment offer. He did not send it to legal for a deep review because Graham was screaming for me to start Monday. Miller just wanted it done. So, buried in the Tools and Proprietary Systems section of my employment contract was a clause that stated, Signal Harbor Analytics retained full ownership of the North Star source code and administrative privileges, granting Solstice a non-exclusive, revocable license to use the output. For years, it did not matter. Graham treated me like an oracle. We grew, the stock split, the bonuses were fat. Then came Vivian. Vivian Calloway did not care about algorithms. She cared about aesthetics. When she took over as Chief Creative Officer 2 years ago, the dynamic in the boardroom shifted. Graham stopped looking at my spreadsheets and started looking at her mood boards. "Data is an accessory, Lucy," she told me once in a meeting, waving a hand dismissively at my quarterly report. "It is like a purse. It should match the outfit, not dictate it." She began overruling North Star. She insisted on gut-feeling buys. She talked about brand vibes and cultural resonance, while my dashboards showed wasted spend bleeding out of the accounts. When I pushed back, she called me rigid. When I showed her the math, she called me a buzzkill. And now, tonight, she had stood on a stage and called me obsolete. I sit in my home office, the silence of my apartment a sharp contrast to the noise of the town hall. It is 2 o'clock in the morning. I have not changed out of my dress. My makeup is still perfect, a mask that has not cracked. On my desk, under the glow of a single lamp, is a stack of paper. I have dug them out of my fireproof safe. The ink on the bottom page is 12 years old. It is the original consulting agreement. I trace the signature Miller's scrawl, my own neat cursive. I flip to the next document, the North Star license agreement, and then, the most recent one, the integration addendum. This was Vivian's doing. 6 months ago, she had demanded that North Star be fully integrated into the new marketing automation platforms she had bought. She wanted my engine to talk directly to her ad-buying software. She thought she was taking power away from me, automating my job so she would not have to listen to my warnings in meetings. She had pushed the addendum across the table to me with a smug look. "Just a formality. Lucy, we need the systems to talk to each other. Legal signed off." I had read it. I doubt she did. I turned the page to section 4.2, paragraph C. When I drafted this language, I was thinking about protecting my engine from bad data. I wanted to ensure that if Solstice's new automated systems tried to pump garbage into North Star, my code could reject it. The clause reads, "To maintain the integrity of the predictive modeling, any campaign with a total media spend exceeding $5 million must pass the licensor's automated brand safety and fraud prevention protocols. Failure to pass these checks grants the licensor the immediate authority to suspend data processing to prevent corruption of the algorithm. The licensor is Signal Harbor Analytics. The licensor is me. Vivian's Winterglow campaign is budgeted at $9.2 million. She never asked what the brand safety and fraud prevention protocols actually were. She just assumed they were some IT checkbox that would always be green. She assumed that because she was the CEO's wife, the systems would bow to her just like the employees did. I lean back in my chair, the leather creaking softly. My eyes drift to the second stack of papers on my desk, printouts from the internal budget approval system I accessed an hour ago. I had been suspicious about the size of the Winterglow budget from the start. $9 million is massive, even for us. Usually, a campaign that size is split across 5 or 6 major agencies, media buying, creative, digital, out of home. But when I look at the vendor routing, the money isn't going to our usual partners. It is not going to the big firms in New York or Chicago. The primary vendor of record is an entity called Velvet Lantern Creative. I run a quick search on my second monitor. Velvet Lantern Creative is a boutique agency registered in Delaware 3 years ago. The registered agent is a lawyer, but the principal address leads to a co-working space in the Arts District, a space I know Vivian visited last month for a photo shoot, and there, in the vendor onboarding documents, is the banking information. The routing number connects to a bank utilized heavily by high-net-worth individuals for private wealth management. It is self-dealing. It has to be. Vivian is funneling $9.2 million of Solstice shareholder money into an agency she likely controls or has a significant stake in. The pieces of the puzzle click together with a satisfying, terrifying snap. This is why she canceled my bonus. It wasn't just petty cruelty, it was strategic. She needed the board of directors to approve that $9.2 million spend. To get that approval, she needed to show them a projected return on investment that was astronomical. She needed to promise them that Winterglow would bring in $20 or $30 million in revenue, but North Star would never have predicted that. North Star would have looked at her vibes-based media plan and predicted a flat line, so she had to silence me. She had to frame me as blocking innovation and stuck in old models, so she could override my projections with her own fabricated numbers. She cut my bonus to discredit me, to signal to the company and the board that my data was no longer the source of truth. She needed me powerless, so she could steal $9 million in broad daylight. I look at the screen, where the North Star icon pulses quietly in the corner of my desktop. It is waiting for instructions. Vivian thinks she has won because she controls the narrative. She thinks that because she holds the microphone, she holds the power. She thinks Solstice owns North Star. She is wrong. Solstice is just renting it, and the landlord just found a violation of the lease. I do not feel angry anymore. The burning humiliation from the town hall has cooled into something solid and heavy, like a stone in my hand. I do not need to go to HR. I do not need to sue. I do not need to make a scene in the lobby. If the Winterglow campaign fails the brand safety checks, if it turns out that Velvet Lantern Creative is buying ads on fraudulent sites or using fake bot traffic to pump up their numbers, I do not have to break anything. I do not have to manually shut it down and leave my fingerprints on the murder weapon. All I have to do is enforce the contract she signed. I reach for my keyboard. The seed of revenge is not loud or dramatic. It is a quiet recognition. If North Star detects fraud, North Star stops the campaign. It is automatic. It is impartial. It is just math. And Vivian is about to learn that math is the only thing in this world that you cannot charm. The glow of my dual monitors is the only light in the room. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. 4 hours after Vivian Calloway destroyed my reputation, and I am doing exactly what a loyal employee would do. I am logging into the corporate network. My credentials still work. Of course they do. It would never revoke my access before Monday morning. And even if they tried, my root access to North Star is hard-coded into the kernel. I am not just a user. I am the architect. To the system logs. My activity looks innocuous. I am simply opening the file directory labeled Year-End Documentation. It is the kind of boring, dutiful housekeeping that a numbers girl like me would be expected to do before clearing out her desk. But I am not organizing files. I am hunting. I pull up the master dashboard for the Winterglow campaign. On the surface, it looks impressive. The projected return on investment curve is a steep, confident climb, predicting a dazzling 18% lift in fourth quarter revenue. It is the kind of chart that makes board members drool. It is also completely impossible. I toggle the view from presentation mode to source data. The smooth curve fractures into a jagged mess of manual inputs. I scan the metadata for the last 3 weeks of activity. Usually, these projections are generated by North Star's algorithms based on historical trends and real-time market signals. But these numbers have been hard-coded. Someone simply typed them in. I check the user ID responsible for the changes. I expect to see a junior analyst from finance, maybe coerced into fudging the numbers. Instead, I see a tag I have never seen before, VL Admin. Velvet Lantern Admin. Vivian's agency has direct write access to our internal financial projections. That is a massive violation of segregation of duties. It is Compliance 101. You do not let the vendor tell you how much money they are going to make you. You calculate it yourself. I drill down deeper. I want to see where the $9.2 million is actually going. The media plan is a labyrinth of line items, categorized under vague headings like strategic partnerships and digital amplification. I click on a line item for $1.5 million allocated to a high-impact display network called Aurora Horizon Media. The name sounds generic enough to be real, but North Star's vendor validation tool is flagging a yellow warning next to it. I run a background query on Aurora Horizon Media. The company was incorporated 4 months ago. The registered address is a post office box in a strip mall in Reno, Nevada. There is no website, no LinkedIn profile for a CEO, and no trade references. I pull up the incorporation documents from the Nevada Secretary of State database. The registered agent is hidden, but the initial filing officer is listed as Jessica Vane. I freeze. I know that name. I open a new tab and search for Vivian's old college photos, the ones she has carefully scrubbed from her curated Instagram, but that still exist on the archived web. I find a photo from a sorority gala 15 years ago. Vivian is laughing, holding a champagne flute, her arm draped around a brunette woman with sharp eyes. The caption reads, Viv and Jess, partners in crime forever, Jessica Vane. Vivian is not just wasting company money on bad ads. She is funneling $1.5 million to a shell company run by her college best friend. This is not incompetence. This is embezzlement masked as marketing. A memory flashes in my mind, sharp and sudden. 3 weeks ago, I received an instant message from Owen Ramirez. Lucy, he had written, just saw the revised Q4 forecast. The jump in Winterglow efficiency is incredible. Did you find a new attribution model? I had been in meetings all day and hadn't checked the logs. I assumed he was talking about the small optimization tweaks my team had made. I had replied, We are always tuning the engine. Owen, glad it looks good. I scroll back through my chat history with Owen now. I find his response. Great. Vivian told me you finally saw the light and signed off on her targets. Good to have everyone aligned. I stare at the screen. I never signed off on those targets. Vivian lied to the CFO. She used my credibility, the trust I had built with Owen over a decade, to validate her fraudulent projections. She told him I had approved the numbers so that he would release the funds. And then, once the money was secured, she publicly humiliated me to ensure I would be too discredited to contradict her when the real numbers came in. It is a masterclass in manipulation. She used me as the key to unlock the vault. and then she broke the key so no one could use it again. I feel a cold, vibrating anger in my chest, but my hands remain steady. I need more proof. I need to prove that the value she is buying with this stolen money is fake. I switch to the media buy execution logs. The VL admin account has been busy. They have purchased millions of impressions across a network of holiday influencer partners. I pull the list of influencers. It is a roster of names like Style by Sarah 22 and Winter Wonder Mom. I feed the handles into North Star's fraud detection module. The results populate instantly. Red flags everywhere. Style by Sarah 22 has 50,000 followers, but 0.0% engagement rate. The account was created in September. The profile photo is a stock image available on Getty Images. The posts are generic reposts of holiday memes. Winter Wonder Mom is even worse. The account activity shows bursts of thousands of likes appearing at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, all from IP addresses located in a server farm in Eastern Europe. These are not influencers. They are bot farms. Velvet Lantern Creative is buying traffic from itself or its partners to simulate interest. They are going to run the Winter Glow ads on these fake pages, charge Solstice premium rates for the exposure, and the only people seeing our $9.2 million campaign will be Russian bots and automated scripts. But how did this get past the blockade North Star is designed to block this automatically? I wrote the code myself. If an ad buy has a fraud score above 5%, the system kills the purchase order. These buys have fraud scores of 99%. I go into the system configuration logs. I search for override, and there it is, dated 2 weeks ago, a ticket from the IT help desk. Priority 1 whitelist request. The notes read, per instruction from V. Callaway, the Velvet Lantern API pipeline is to be whitelisted to bypass legacy latency checks, critical for campaign launch speed, approved by CIO. She didn't just lie to finance, she bullied it. She framed North Star's fraud checks as legacy latency issues, technical lag that was slowing down her brilliance. She forced them to punch a hole in the firewall so her agency could pump sewage directly into our ecosystem without the alarms going off. She thinks she disabled the alarm, but she does not understand how the building is wired. The whitelist she demanded applies to the Solstice network firewalls. It allows Velvet Lantern to send data to us, but once that data enters our environment, it still has to be processed, it still has to be reported, and the engine that does the reporting is North Star. She bypassed the gate guard, but she is still walking into my house. I look at the calendar on my wall. It is December 2nd. The Winter Glow campaign goes fully national on December 5th. That is in 3 days. The media buys are queued up. The bot farms are ready to spin. The shell companies are waiting for the wire transfers. I open the North Star Administrative Scheduler. Normally, we run system audits in January. When the retail season is over, it is a quiet time to clean up code and archive data. But as the license owner, I have the contractual right to inspect the system for stability assurance whenever I deem it necessary to protect the integrity of the intellectual property. I create a new task. Task name, Year-End Stability Review. Priority critical. Scope full system scan. I set the start date for December 4th at midnight, 24 hours before the Winter Glow launch. The audit will run silently in the background. It will monitor every transaction, every impression, every click, and every dollar flowing through the system. And because the system is in audit mode, the standard whitelists do not apply. In audit mode, North Star checks everything. But I am not just going to watch. I am going to intervene. I open the logic editor for the North Star core protocol. My fingers fly across the mechanical keys, the sound distinct and rhythmic in the quiet room. I locate the conditional logic for audit findings. Currently, the system is set to log and notify. If it finds an anomaly, it writes a line in a text file and sends an email to the admin. That is not enough. Not for this. I delete the log and notify command. I type in a new set of instructions. If fraud score 15% or vendor validation equals fail, then execute protocol safeguard. I define protocol safeguard. It is a simple script, but devastating. Step 1. Immediate suspension of all active media insertion orders associated with the flagged campaign ID. Step 2. Revocation of all API tokens for the originating vendor. Step 3. Auto-generation of a compliance breach report. I pause here. I need to make sure this report goes to the right people. If it just goes to Vivian, she will bury it. I configure the distribution list for the report. Recipient 1. Audit Committee of the Board of Directors. Recipient 2. General Counsel. Recipient 3. Chief Financial Officer. Recipient 4. External Regulatory Compliance Archive. I set the report to be immutable, PDF format, digitally signed, time-stamped, and encrypted. Once it is generated, it cannot be edited, deleted, or recalled. It becomes a permanent legal record of exactly what happened. I look at the code one last time. It is elegant. It is impartial. It does not care about office politics or who is sleeping with the CEO. It only cares about the truth. If Vivian's campaign is legitimate, if her influencers are real people and her vendors are actual businesses, then North Star will scan them, find nothing, and the Winterglow campaign will launch without a hitch. I will have done my job, and she will have her victory. But if she is lying and the data says she is lying on a scale that constitutes felony fraud, then the moment she tries to push the go button on her $9.2 million disaster, North Star will catch her hand in the jar and slam the lid shut. I press Commit Changes. The progress bar slides from left to right. Update successful. System armed. I close my laptop. The fan whirs to a stop, leaving the room in silence again. I stand up and walk to the window, looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, in the penthouse of the Callaway estate, Vivian is probably sleeping soundly, dreaming of magazine covers and galas. She thinks she has erased me. She thinks she has cut me out of the equation. She forgot the most important rule of data analytics: garbage in, garbage out. I'm just taking out the trash. The Callaway estate sits on a hill overlooking the city, a sprawling expanse of limestone and glass that looks less like a home and more like a monument to compound interest. Tonight, the driveway is lined with valet attendants in red velvet jackets, and the front lawn is covered in a layer of snow that looks too perfect to be real. I suspect Vivian had it trucked in to match the aesthetic. I hand my keys to a valet who looks barely old enough to drive and walk up the heated stone path. The air is crisp, smelling of pine needles and expensive perfume. Inside, a string quartet is playing a slow, mournful version of Silent Night. It is the annual executive Christmas cocktail party, a mandatory sentence for anyone in the C-suite orbit. I am wearing a simple black dress with long sleeves and a high neck. It is severe, unadorned, and deliberately invisible. After the town hall, I know exactly what I'm walking into. I am the ghost at the feast. I am the cautionary tale standing next to the shrimp cocktail. As I enter the grand foyer, the conversation does not stop, but the frequency changes. It is a subtle shift in the room's acoustic texture. Heads turn slightly, then snap back to their drinks. Eyes dart away. I see the whispers moving from lip to ear like a contagion. The humiliation from the stage has followed me here, transforming into pity and awkward avoidance. My colleagues, people I have worked with for a decade, suddenly find the ice sculpture of a reindeer fascinating. They are afraid that if they talk to me, Vivian's gaze might drift their way next. I move toward the bar, not because I want a drink, but because it is a destination. I order a sparkling water with lime. The glass is heavy crystal, cold against my fingers. "Lucy, you came." The voice cuts through the ambient chatter like a glass shard. I turn to see Vivian Callaway gliding toward me. She is wearing a gown of shimmering silver sequins that catches every light in the room. She looks like a human disco ball, dazzling and hard. She reaches out and touches my arm. Her fingers are freezing. "I was worried you might sit this one out," she says, her voice pitched loud enough for the nearby vice presidents to hear. "After the restructuring conversation, I am still an employee, Vivian, I say, my voice steady. And I enjoy the holidays. Vivian laughs, a light, tinkling sound that feels rehearsed. She leans in closer, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper, though her eyes are scanning the room to see who is watching her be benevolent. Look, she says, smiling tightly. I hope you did not take the bonus decision personally. You know how corporate narratives work. Sometimes the story needs a villain to make the hero's journey compelling. And let us be honest, darling, numbers people rarely photograph well. I stare at her. She is admitting it. She is telling me to my face that she destroyed my financial year because I didn't fit her aesthetic. To her, my career is just a prop in her stage play. It is an interesting strategy, I say, keeping my face blank. Making enemies of the people who manage the infrastructure. Vivian waves a hand dismissively, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Oh, infrastructure. That is the past. Lucy, the future is emotion. It is energy. This Winterglow campaign, it is my personal portfolio piece. I told the board yesterday that this isn't just marketing, it is art. I guaranteed them a minimum 18% revenue lift. 18%. She just confirmed the number I saw in the rigged logs. That is a very specific promise, I say. Go big or go home, she says, winking. Graham was nervous. Of course, he's always so cautious. But I told him, if you want the stock to jump, you have to give them a show, and velvet pays better than denim. She squeezes my arm one last time, a gesture of dominance, not affection. Enjoy the party. Lucy, try the truffle sliders. They cost a fortune. She drifts away, leaving a trail of heavy floral scent in her wake. I watch her greet the head of sales, laughing aggressively at a joke that was not funny. I turn back to my water and find I am not alone. Eleanor Pace is standing at the corner of the bar, watching Vivian retreat. Eleanor is a legend in retail. She has been on the Solstice board of directors for 15 years. She is 70 years old, wears tweed suits that cost more than my car, and she never smiles unless something is actually amusing. She is the only person in this room who intimidates me. 18%, Eleanor says, her voice low and raspy. She is looking at her drink. A neat scotch. That is a bold number for a Q4 in this economy. I straighten up. It is ambitious. I agree neutrally. Eleanor turns her sharp, gray eyes on me. I reviewed the board deck this morning. The projections for this Winterglow initiative are unusually robust. Vivian claims your data team signed off on the predictive modeling. She said the new algorithms are finally capturing the intangible value of her creative direction. She pauses, swirling the amber liquid in her glass. I have always trusted your models. Lucy, you saved us from that athleisure disaster back in 2015. So tell me, do you really believe we are going to see an 18% lift from a $9 million spend? This is the test. If I lie, I am complicit. If I tell the truth, I look like a disgruntled employee trying to sabotage the boss's wife. I take a sip of water, buying a second of time. I need to be precise. North Star is a powerful tool. Eleanor, I say carefully, but it is a logic engine. It does not have an imagination. It calculates outcomes based on the inputs it is given. Eleanor tilts her head slightly. And, I continue, holding her gaze, North Star only validates numbers it is allowed to see. It is a subtle sentence, but it lands with the weight of a hammer. Eleanor's eyes narrow. The skin around her mouth tightens. She understands immediately that I am drawing a distinction between the system I built and the data Vivian is feeding it. Allowed to see, she repeats softly. That is an interesting choice of words. I think clarity is important, I say, especially when the stakes are $9.2 million. Eleanor looks at me for a long moment, assessing me. Then she nods, a single, sharp incline of her chin. Thank you. Lucy, enjoy your evening. She walks away, but she does not head toward the buffet. She heads toward a quiet corner of the room, pulling her phone from her purse. I need air. The heat in the room is rising, fueled by body warmth and too many candles. I navigate through the crowd, avoiding eye contact, and slip into the service corridor that leads to the kitchen. I intend to find a back door to the garden, but the sound of a familiar voice stops me. The kitchen door is cracked open, inside, amidst the clatter of catering staff plating hors d'oeuvres. Vivian is shouting, "No, I do not care what the contract says." Vivian is screaming at a terrified woman holding a clipboard, the event planner. "I told you I want the Velvet Lantern logo on every photo backdrop, not the Solstice logo, my agency's logo." "Mrs. Calloway," the planner stammers, "the corporate branding guidelines strictly state—" "Screw the guidelines," Vivian snaps. "This party is about the campaign. The campaign is Velvet Lantern. I want my brand to dominate the holiday coverage this year. When people see photos of this party on Instagram tomorrow, I want them to see my lantern, not that boring solstice sun. Fix it, or you are not getting paid." I stand frozen in the hallway. It is one thing to funnel money to her own agency. It is another to brazenly erase the company that is paying for it. She is cannibalizing Solstice to build her own brand. She is using our budget, our reputation, and our platform to launch her boutique firm, and she does not care if she burns us down in the process. I back away silently, retracing my steps before anyone sees me. I make it to the French doors leading to the terrace. I need to leave. I cannot breathe the same air as these people anymore. "Lucy," I stop. Graham Calloway is standing by the heavy velvet drapes. He looks tired. He is holding a glass of red wine that looks untouched. "Graham," I say. He looks at his shoes, then out the window, then anywhere but at my face. "I saw you talking to Viv earlier. I hope you guys are okay." "We are fine, Graham," I say. She explained her perspective on villains. Graham winces. He rubs the back of his neck. "Look, about the town hall. It was intense. You know how she gets. She is passionate. She felt like she needed to assert authority to get the creative teams in line. She humiliated me, Graham," I say. "In front of the entire company. It was optics," he mumbles. "Just optics. Viv just wants accountability. We can revisit the bonus conversation in Q1. Once the campaign numbers come in and everyone calms down, I am sure we can work something out." He is pleading with me to be easy, to be the good little soldier who takes the bullet so he doesn't have to have a difficult conversation with his wife. He wants me to absorb the damage so his life can stay comfortable. He is not a leader, he is a hostage. "The numbers will come in, Graham," I say. "That is one thing you can count on." "Right," he says, relieved that I'm not yelling. "Exactly. The numbers will speak for themselves. We just need to get through the holidays." "Yes," I say. "We just need to get through the holidays." I walk past him, pushing open the glass doors. The cold air hits me like a slap, shocking and clean. I walk down the stone steps to the driveway, bypassing the valet stand. I do not want to wait for my car in the line. I text the valet ticket number to the automated system and keep walking, down the long, winding driveway toward the gate. The trees lining the drive are wrapped in thousands of white fairy lights. They twinkle in the darkness, beautiful and expensive. Vivian probably charged those to the marketing budget, too. My heels click rhythmically on the pavement. I wrap my coat tighter around myself. Inside that house, they are drinking champagne and celebrating a lie. Vivian thinks she is the author of this story. She thinks she can write me out, cast me as the villain, and edit the reality to fit her ego. She thinks the world works like a photo shoot that if you light it correctly, nobody will see the cracks. But she forgot that I am the one who owns the lens. I reach the end of the driveway and look back at the house, glowing on the hill like a golden fortress. I am not going to be the villain in Vivian's story. A villain is a character who loses. A villain is a plot device. I turn away and walk into the dark. I will be the editor, and I am about to cut her scene. The week following the Christmas party is a study in quiet, methodical architecture, while the rest of Solstice Meridian Brands is running around in a frantic, tinsel-covered panic trying to get the Winterglow campaign ready for the national launch. I am sitting in my office with the door closed, building a cage. I do not feel the hot, prickly anger that I felt at the town hall anymore. That emotion has distilled into something much colder and more useful. It is a chess player's focus. I am not interested in causing a scene. I am interested in checkmate. My workspace is covered in documentation. To the left, I have the technical schematics for North Star's fraud detection algorithms. To the right, I have the legal agreements binding my company, Signal Harbor Analytics, to Solstice. I am cross-referencing every line of code with every line of legalese. If I am going to stop a $9.2 million freight train, I cannot just throw a rock at it. I have to dismantle the tracks, and I have to be able to prove in a court of law that dismantling the tracks was my fiduciary duty. I start with the license agreement. I know it by heart. But I read it again to be absolutely certain. Clause 7.4 is the weapon. It states that the licensor reserves the right to suspend service immediately if the licensee utilizes the software in a manner that threatens the integrity of the algorithm or exposes the licensor to regulatory liability. Vivian's plan does both. By feeding false data into North Star to generate inflated financial projections, she is compromising the integrity of my product, and by using those projections to mislead investors and the board, she is courting regulatory disaster. If the Securities and Exchange Commission ever investigated why Solstice promised an 18% revenue jump based on phantom influencers, and they saw North Star's logo on the reports, I would be liable. I am not sabotaging her. I am protecting myself. I draft a formal update to the North Star system protocols. I write it in the dry, unassailable language of compliance. I document that due to an unprecedented surge in global ad fraud during the Q4 holiday window, North Star is implementing a zero-trust verification layer for all campaigns exceeding $5 million. It sounds like standard IT security maintenance. It is actually a guillotine. Next, I open my email client. I need a paper trail that proves I tried to warn the leadership. I compose a message to Owen Ramirez. Subject Q4, Risk Assessment and System Audit. Owen, given the high volume of media spend associated with the upcoming holiday push, I am initiating a deep-level stability audit of the North Star environment starting December 4th. We are seeing elevated bot activity across the retail sector, and I want to ensure our vendor pipelines are clean before the national rollout. This may trigger automated safeguards if any irregularities are detected. Lucy, I hit send. I do not copy Vivian. I do not copy Graham. This is a conversation between the data strategist and the CFO. Owen's reply comes back 11 minutes later. It is characteristically brief. Lucy, do what you need to do. Just keep me in the loop. OR. I stare at the screen. Do what you need to do. It is not an explicit authorization to take down the CEO's wife, but it is close. Owen is tired. He knows the numbers are fake. He knows Vivian is dangerous. But he cannot stop her because Graham will not let him. By giving me this green light, he is washing his hands of the result. He is letting me be the bad guy, or the hero, depending on how this plays out. With Owen's tacit approval logged, I turn back to the system configuration. Normally, when North Star flags a campaign for fraud, the alert goes to the marketing team first. It gives them a chance to fix the issue, change the creative, swap out a vendor, adjust the targeting. It is a courtesy loop. I disable the courtesy loop. I recode the alert pathway. If the Zero Trust protocol is triggered, the system will not email the marketing manager. It will auto-generate a Priority 1 incident report. I set the recipient list carefully. To the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors. CC, Legal Compliance. CC, Chief Financial Officer. I format the report template to look terrifyingly official. It will include the campaign ID, the vendor name, the specific fraud markers detected, and a calculated probability of regulatory exposure. Then, I take the most important step. I create a secure, read-only repository on an external server that mirrors every single data packet sent from Velvet Lantern Creative. Vivian is smart enough to know that she can delete emails and wipe hard drives if things go wrong. She will try to erase the evidence of her incompetence, but she cannot erase this. I configure the repository to capture everything in real time, every fake impression, every bot click, every manual override she attempts. I set the retention policy to 7 years. It is a black box flight recorder for her crash. As I work, I keep one monitor open to the internal company newsfeed. Vivian is everywhere. She is giving interviews to retail trade magazines, bragging about the revolutionary nature of Winterglow. "We are not just selling products," she says in a video clip, looking radiant in a white cashmere coat. "We are selling a feeling. This campaign is going to be the biggest Christmas story in the retail sector, and honestly, this is just the beginning. If we hit our targets, and we are looking at a surprise expansion in January." I watch her smile at the camera. She is doubling down. She is betting the house, the car, and the kids on a hand of cards that she printed herself. A surprise expansion means she is planning to ask the board for even more money in January, using the fake success of December as justification. She is not stopping. She is accelerating. I go to the break room to get my 4th coffee of the day. The office is buzzing with nervous energy. Junior staffers are running around with samples of gift wrap and ribbon. I am stirring my coffee when Maya, a young marketing coordinator, comes in. She looks exhausted. Her eyes are rimmed with red, and she is clutching a tablet like a shield. Maya has been at Solstice for 6 months. She is bright, eager, and currently looks like she is about to vomit. "Hi, Lucy," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "Hey, Maya," I say gently, "you look like you are holding up the world. Everything okay with the rollout?" Maya looks at the door to make sure it is closed. Then she looks at me, and her lower lip trembles. "I do not know what to do," she says. "I was reviewing the influencer lists for the soft launch this morning. The ones from Velvet Lantern. Lucy, they look weird. Some of them have the exact same bio, just with different names. And when I tried to run a preliminary engagement check, the system flagged them as high risk." I nod slowly. "Did you tell anyone?" "I told Vivian," Maya says. She looks down at her shoes. "She told me to stop being negative. She said those are emerging partners and that the system is just too rigid. She told me to ignore the red flags and keep the projections pretty. She said if I could not handle the vision, maybe I did not belong here." My heart breaks a little for her. This is how corruption works. It does not start with a criminal mastermind. It starts with a powerful person bullying a scared 22-year-old into looking the other way. Vivian is making this child complicit in her fraud. I put my coffee down and turn to face her fully. "Listen to me, Maya," I say, keeping my voice low and firm. "You are not crazy. The system is not too rigid. If the flags are red, it is because there is a fire." "But she said—" "I know what she said," I interrupt. "But she is wrong, and I do not want you to get hurt when this breaks." I take a piece of paper from my pocket and write down my personal email address. "Did she send you that instruction in writing to ignore the flags?" Maya nods. "It was in an email this morning." "Forward that email to this address," I say, handing her the paper. "And forward anything else where she tells you to override a system warning. Do it from your personal phone, not your work laptop. Do it today." Maya looks at the paper, then up at me. "Why?" "In case legal ever wants the truth," I say. "You are just following orders, Maya. But you need proof that those orders came from her, not you. Let me hold the insurance policy for you." Maya takes the paper, her hand shaking slightly. She puts it in her pocket. "Thank you. Lucy, go back to your desk," I say. "Do exactly what she tells you. Do not fight her. Just document it." She leaves, looking slightly less terrified. I watch her go. This is not just about my bonus anymore. It is not just about my pride. Vivian is poisoning the culture of this company. She is teaching a generation of young employees that truth is an obstacle and that lying is leadership. I return to my office with a renewed sense of purpose. I am not just an employee taking revenge. I am a white blood cell attacking an infection. It is time. I open the North Star scheduler one last time. Task Audit Protocol Alpha. Start time December 4th, 09:00 a.m. End time indefinite. That is 48 hours before the Winter Glow nationwide media drop. That is exactly enough time for the system to wake up. Look at the $9.2 million in the queue. Realize it is looking at a crime, and slam the emergency brakes. I click Schedule. The screen blinks once, confirming the command. A small clock icon appears next to the task, counting down the seconds. I close my laptop. The snap of the lid echoes in the quiet office. It is a satisfying sound. I pick up my purse and my coat. I walk out of my office, past the rows of empty cubicles where my colleagues have gone home to their families. I walk past the giant poster of Vivian in the lobby, her smile looming over the reception desk. I feel calm. I feel light. It feels almost festive. Merry Christmas. Vivian, I got you exactly what you deserve. It is launch morning, December 6th, 9 o'clock. The open plan office on the 20th floor is vibrating. The energy is a physical thing, a high-frequency thrum of adrenaline and caffeine. Everyone is wearing some form of holiday cheer reindeer antler headbands, ugly sweaters, glitter. The air smells like burnt coffee and sugar cookies. And then there is Vivian. She sweeps onto the floor at precisely 8:55 a.m., not as a CEO's wife, but as a general on Victory Day. She is wearing a floor-length, single-breasted winter coat in a white so pure it is almost blue. It is an impractical, impossible garment for an office, which is exactly the point. She is not here to work. She is here to be documented. Behind her, a two-person camera crew scrambles to keep up. They are filming behind-the-scenes content for her Velvet Lantern portfolio. She is radiant, all teeth and sharp cheekbones, pointing at dashboards, laughing with junior designers, and generally performing the role of the visionary. I just want everyone to remember this feeling, she announces to the room at large. This is what it feels like to make magic. Today, we do not just launch a campaign, we launch a new era for Solstice. I am in my office, door closed. The blinds are half drawn. On my main monitor is the public-facing dashboard, the one piped to the giant LED screens in the war room. It is the vanity dashboard, designed to show big, impressive numbers. On my second monitor is the North Star admin console. It is the truth. At precisely 9 o'clock, the Go button is pressed somewhere in the IT department. The war room erupts in applause. On my main monitor, the graphs leap to life. Impressions, clicks, video views. The numbers climb at a dizzying rate. 1 million impressions in the first 60 seconds, 2 million in 90. The campaign looks like a rocket ship. Vivian is in the center of the room, her arms outstretched, accepting congratulations. The cameras are zoomed in on her ecstatic face. I turn to my other screen, the truth, the North Star audit, which has been silently observing the queue for 12 hours, is now analyzing the live traffic. My screen is not green. It is a pulsing, angry red. A fire hose of fraudulent data is trying to force its way through the safeguards I built. The system is catching it all. The non-human traffic metric, which should be under 2%, is climbing 50%, 65%, 82%. The vendor integrity check is flashing critical. The shell companies I identified, Aurora Horizon Media, Jessica Vane's Little Slush Fund, are routing their ad placements through IP addresses blacklisted by every major advertising alliance on Earth. They are not just buying ads on bot farms, they are buying ads on illegal streaming sites and malware distribution networks. On the influencer panel, the handles Vivian and Maya discussed are generating thousands of clicks per second, all originating from a single server cluster in Romania. For 7 minutes, I let it run. I let the system gather the proof. I watch as North Star builds an airtight, indefensible case file of gross negligence and wire fraud. The system is logging every packet, every timestamp, every failed check. At 9:07 a.m., the thresholds I set are breached. The system's automated logic executes. It is not a crash. It is a clinical, instantaneous, and silent execution. On my monitor, a single line of code appears in the master log protocol safeguard executed. The war room is still cheering. They are looking at the vanity dashboard, which is now frozen on its last glorious data point. Then, the first sign of trouble. A junior media buyer, headset on, frowns at his screen. Guys, my demand-side platform just went dark. All solstice buys are gone. Refresh your screen, Mark, a vice president barks. I did, Mark says, his voice rising in panic. It is not a refresh issue. The insertion orders are gone. The API just kicked me out. All of them. In the digital world, the execution is total. On digital billboards in Times Square and downtown Chicago, the Winter Glow ads vanish, replaced by default black screens or ads for Coca-Cola. On Instagram, the paid promotions disappear from feeds. On Hulu, the ad spots are replaced by a generic, "We'll be right back" bumper. Every major advertising platform on the internet, from Google to Meta to The Trade Desk, has just received an automated kill notice. That notice came from the North Star license key. My license key. It cites breach of compliance standards and active fraud detection as the reason. The platforms, terrified of their own liability, do not ask questions. They just cut the feed. The cheer in the war room dies. It curdles into a confused, angry murmur. Vivian is still standing in the middle of it all, her smile frozen, her camera crew still rolling. She is mid-soundbite. It is not just about the numbers, she is saying. It is about the Christmas magic. Maya, the young coordinator, runs into the room. She is pale as a sheet. She shoves her way to Vivian, holding her laptop. "Vivian," she says, her voice shaking. "Stop. Our CPMs just dropped to 0. Vivian looks at her, uncomprehending. "What? Our cost per mil. It is 0, because we are not buying anything. The buys are pausing. Everywhere. The whole campaign just stopped." The room descends into chaos. Conference rooms fill. Executives are screaming into phones. Marketing is blaming it. The CIO is on a speakerphone with the head of digital, who is shouting that it is not their servers. It is the platforms. It is Google, he yells. It is Facebook. They are blocking us. The platforms, in turn, are already responding. Emails flood the inboxes of the media team. Per your system administrator, the campaign has been suspended. We are showing a critical compliance alert originating from your North Star analytics environment. All spend has been paused pending resolution of a potential fraud exposure. My office is an island of silence in the middle of the hurricane. I am watching the system logs. I am watching the safeguards hold. My desk phone rings. The display says Owen Ramirez. I let it ring 3 times. I pick up. Lucy Rivera. "Lucy." His voice is tight. I can hear the shouting in the background of his office. "What the hell is going on? Tell me this is a glitch. Tell me this is a server crash." I lean back in my chair, my voice even and calm. "It is not a glitch. Owen, it is the audit." The audit. The one I emailed you about. The system did what it was designed to do when someone tried to push $9 million of invalid traffic through it. North Star detected massive, pervasive fraud from the primary vendor, and it shut the campaign down to protect the company. It is working exactly as intended. There is a long pause on the line. I hear him take a slow, deep breath. He does not say thank you. He does not say you are fired. He just says, "Jesus Christ," and hangs up the phone. He knows. He knew this was coming. The door to my office does not open. It explodes. It slams against the interior wall so hard the drywall cracks. Vivian Calloway stands in the doorway. Her white coat is open. Her face is a mask of crimson rage. Her eyes are wide and animalistic. The camera crew is, for the first time, gone. She is alone. "You," she hisses. The word is full of venom. I do not stand up. I just look at her. Vivian, you did this, she screams. She storms into my office, her fists clenched. You little data entry bitch. You sabotaged me. You ruined it. I did not do anything, I say, my voice dangerously quiet. I sat right here and watched you try to defraud this company. Fraud, she shrieks. It is creative buying. It is innovation. You do not understand. I will have you fired. I will have you arrested. I will have you walked out of this building by security right now. She is leaning over my desk, spittle flying from her mouth. She is completely unhinged. I do not flinch. I do not raise my voice. I slowly reach to the side of my desk and pick up a single, bound document. It is my original employment contract from 12 years ago, the one from Signal Harbor Analytics. I place it on the desk between us. You cannot fire me, Vivian, I say softly. I am the CEO's wife. I can do whatever I want. No, I say, tapping the cover of the document. You cannot. Graham cannot even fire me. Not for this. You see, when it comes to North Star, I am not an employee. I am a licenser. My company, Signal Harbor Analytics, owns the engine this entire company runs on. And Graham signed a contract that says if Solstice Meridian tries to terminate my employment in bad faith, or in retaliation for me protecting my intellectual property, the license for the entire platform is terminated. Immediately, I lean forward. Not just for Winterglow, Vivian, for everything. The website, the e-commerce backend, the inventory management, the entire $10 billion company goes dark because you could not read a contract. Her face changes. The rage does not disappear, but it is joined by a sudden, cold flush of confusion, and then a primal, dawning horror. She finally understands. She is a queen who has just realized she is standing on a trapdoor, and I am the one holding the lever. She has no power here. She opens her mouth, then closes it. She is speechless. As she stands there, vibrating with impotent fury, a small notification pops up in the corner of my screen. A single, polite ping. It is a sent receipt from my email client. I swivel my chair, turning away from her. I look at my sent items folder. One new item, sent at 9:15 a.m. to Eleanor Pace, Owen Ramirez, Lydia Forrester, General Counsel, SMB Audit Committee DL. Subject emergency safeguard. Winterglow campaign suspended. Potential regulatory exposure attached. The report is out. The bomb is in the air. And it is no longer my problem. It is theirs. The emergency meeting is convened at 11 o'clock in the main executive boardroom. The room is a glass box on the 30th floor, and the city outside is disappearing into a heavy, silent blizzard. It feels like we are trapped inside a snow globe, the atmosphere thick and cold and distorted. Graham sits at the head of the long, polished mahogany table, looking like a man who has not slept. He is gray. To his right is Vivian, bolt upright, her face a rigid mask of fury. To his left is Lydia Forrester, our general counsel. Lydia is a sharp, precise woman in her 50s who wears tailored suits and speaks in perfectly formed paragraphs. She is here to assess liability, which means the situation is already catastrophic. Owen is at the far end, his hands folded on top of a single manila folder. And then there is me. I am seated across from Vivian. I have my laptop, my contract, and a bottle of water. The silence stretches for 10 seconds. 20. Graham is incapable of starting. So Vivian does. Well, this is predictable, she snaps, her voice like ice. I assume we are all here to accept Lucy's resignation. Lydia raises an eyebrow but says nothing. This is nothing more than a childish, personal vendetta, Vivian continues, directing her performance at Lydia and Graham. I made a brave leadership decision to withhold her Christmas bonus due to underperformance. In retaliation, she sabotaged a $9.2 million campaign. This is a temper tantrum, and she should be prosecuted for it. I wait until the echo of her voice fades. I do not look at her. I look at Lydia. Lydia, I say, my voice calm and neutral. May I use the projector? Lydia nods once. Please. I connect my laptop, the large screen at the end of the room, usually reserved for glowing campaign presentations, flickers to life. It shows the North Star admin console. It is not pretty. It is a dense, ugly interface of raw data and red warning labels. This is not a vendetta, Vivian, I say. This is an audit. You are right that I am the one who stopped the campaign, or rather, the system I built stopped it. It did so because it detected active, pervasive fraud. I click to the first screen. This is the vendor log for Velvet Lantern Creative. As you can see, North Star began flagging its activity at 9 o'clock this morning. The system detected that 92% of the traffic from Velvet Lantern's premier influencer network originated from a single server block in Romania. These are not influencers. Vivian, they are bots. Vivian opens her mouth, but I continue. Next slide. I click again. Here is the vendor payment authorization for $1.5 million to a partner network called Aurora Horizon Media. North Star flagged this as a shell corporation. It was incorporated 4 months ago. It has no website, and its registered agent is a P.O. box in Reno. Its founding officer, as of this morning's public record search, is a Ms. Jessica Vane. I believe you know her. Vivian's face goes white. Graham, who had been looking confused, suddenly snaps his head toward his wife. Jessica Vane, your friend from college. Vivian ignores him. This is experimental. It is how modern media works. You are too stupid to understand. I understand this, I say, clicking to the final slide. It is a flow chart, a simple, brutal diagram showing $9.2 million flowing from Solstice Meridian into Velvet Lantern, and then splitting, with significant portions flowing directly to shell companies run by her known associates. The system detected self-dealing, I say. It detected wire fraud. It detected deliberate performance misrepresentation. My bonus is trivial. This is not... The room is dead silent. The only sound is the wind hitting the glass. Lydia Forrester is the first to speak. She has not looked away from the screen. She slowly removes her glasses and rubs the bridge of her nose. Vivian, Lydia says, her voice devoid of all emotion. Let me be perfectly clear about what I'm looking at. If I see these logs, it means the SEC can see these logs. It means our investors can see these logs. And if they do, they will not call this experimental. They will call it deliberate misrepresentation of material facts. They will call it shareholder fraud. They will call it self-dealing by an officer of the company. And they will claw back every dollar you, or your friends, were paid. This is not a glitch. Vivian, this is a potential indictment. Vivian looks stunned, as if Lydia has just slapped her. The legal argument is one she was not prepared for. She turns, desperately, to her only remaining ally. Graham, she shrieks, her voice cracking. Are you hearing this? Are you just going to sit there? She is accusing your wife of being a criminal. Are you really going to take her side over your own wife? Graham looks trapped. He is sweating, his eyes darting between me, Lydia, and his wife. He is a man watching his two worlds collide, and he is not strong enough to survive the impact. Vivian, everyone, let's calm down, Graham stammers, loosening his tie. This is a misunderstanding, Lucy. The vendors, they were just bad, right? A mistake. So, just turn the campaign back on. We will find new vendors. We will fix it. Just make the problem go away. He is pleading. He wants me to erase the evidence. He wants me to hide it so he does not have to confront what his wife has done. Before I can answer, Owen speaks for the first time. His voice is quiet, but it cuts through the room. I tried to warn him. Lucy, Owen says, looking not at me, but at Lydia. I have the emails. I flagged the Winterglow projections 3 weeks ago. I told Graham the numbers were impossible, that they were not generated by North Star. He looks at Vivian. Vivian told me that Lucy had seen the light and had signed off on the new models. She used your credibility, Lucy, to push the budget through. I was brushed off. He turns his gaze to Graham. Your audit did not create this problem. Lucy, it just exposed what was already happening. We are lucky she stopped it at 9 million. Vivian was planning to ask for more in January. The net tightens. Graham sinks back in his chair as if he has been punched. So, I say, turning back to Graham, to answer your question, no, I will not fix this. Fixing it would mean overriding the safeguards, approving the fraudulent vendors, and knowingly passing falsified performance data to our partners and to the market. I would be making myself complicit in the fraud. I will not do that. You will, Vivian snarls, her composure cracking completely. You will do as you are told, or I will destroy what is left of your career. No, I say. I will not. I look back at Lydia, the final piece. Lydia, I say, there is one more thing you need to understand. When Vivian and the IT department created a whitelist to bypass North Star's automated checks, they did more than just violate compliance. They violated a contract. Lydia's head snaps up. What contract? My contract. I slide the bound document across the table. North Star is not Solstice Meridian intellectual property. It is, and always has been, the property of my private LLC, Signal Harbor Analytics. This company, I tap the cover, has been licensing it from me for 12 years. That license explicitly states that any attempt to bypass the system's integrity protocols or to use the system to generate deliberately falsified data constitutes a material breach. I lean forward, and for the first time, I look directly into Vivian's eyes. You did not just commit fraud against your husband's company. Vivian, you committed it using my company's software, and when you threatened to fire me, you triggered the bad faith termination clause, which means, I turn back to Lydia, that if I am walked out of this building, the license for North Star is revoked, not just for this campaign, for everything, the e-commerce platform, the inventory management, the entire $10 billion supply chain goes dark before lunch. Graham makes a small gasping sound. Vivian stares at me, her mouth slightly open. The blood has drained from her face. She finally understands. She is a queen who has been checkmated by a pawn. Lydia Forrester is silent for a very long time. She stares at me, then at the contract, then at Graham's pathetic, crumbling face. She is the only person in the room who sees the full, terrifying picture. The company is leveraged on an engine owned by the woman the CEO's wife just tried to destroy. Finally, she pushes her chair back, a quiet scraping sound. She turns her body, physically angling herself away from Graham and Vivian. She dismisses them. They are no longer part of the solution. She looks only at me. All right, Lucy, Lydia says, her voice low and pragmatic. I understand your position. We are in breach. She leans forward, all pretense gone. What would it take for you to get us out of this, without lying? And I watch Vivian's face as she realizes the conversation is no longer about her. She is not the visionary. She is not the hero. She is just the problem, and I am the only one who has the solution. The storm outside the boardroom windows has turned the city into a blur of white and gray, erasing the skyline. Inside, the mood has shifted from panic to a grim, focused surgery. Graham and Vivian have been ushered out of the room, leaving me alone with the adults Lydia Forrester, our general counsel, and Owen Ramirez, the chief financial officer. We are no longer discussing if I'm fired. We are discussing how to keep the company from being indicted. Lydia sits at the head of the table now. She has removed her blazer, rolling up the sleeves of her silk blouse. She looks less like a corporate lawyer and more like a field medic trying to stop a bleed. Okay, Lucy, she says, her pen hovering over a legal pad. Walk us through the exit strategy. You said you could get us out of this without lying. How? I take a sip of water. I am calm. I have been playing this scenario in my head for a week. We have to pivot, I say. If we try to pretend the Winterglow campaign is just paused for technical difficulties, the market will smell blood. The silence from the ad platforms is too loud. We have to control the narrative before the bloggers do. Control it how? Owen asks, looking haggard. We kill the campaign, I state flatly. We issue a formal, public termination of the $9.2 million Winterglow initiative effective immediately, but we do not frame it as a failure. We frame it as a triumph of internal governance. Lydia stops writing and looks up. Go on. We issue a press release stating that Solstice Meridian's proprietary oversight system's North Star detected irregularities in third-party vendor performance during the initial rollout. I explain. We say that in line with our uncompromising commitment to brand safety and transparency, we triggered an automatic kill switch to protect our shareholders and our customers. We make the cancellation look like a feature, not a bug. Owen realizes, a flicker of hope returning to his eyes. We are not the victims of fraud. We are the enforcers of integrity. Exactly, I say. It makes Solstice look rigorous. It makes us look responsible. It spins the story from company loses millions in bot scam to company technology prevents wasteful spend. The investors will love it. It proves our internal controls work. Lydia taps her pen on the pad. It is elegant, she admits. It saves the stock price, but it throws Velvet Lantern under the bus. Velvet Lantern is already under the bus, I say coldly. I am just suggesting we don't lie down next to them. And what is your price? Lydia asks. She is a transactional creature. She knows I'm not offering this lifeline out of charity. I reach into my bag and pull out a fresh document. I spent last night drafting it. This is the new master license agreement for North Star, I say, sliding it across the polished mahogany. The old contract was a standard employee IP agreement. This one is a commercial vendor contract between Solstice Meridian and Signal Harbor Analytics. Lydia picks it up, her eyes scanning the first page. The terms are simple, I continue. Solstice retains the license to use North Star for all its operations inventory, logistics, marketing, but Signal Harbor Analytics retains absolute veto power over data integrity. That means no more whitelists, no more bypassing fraud checks, no more creative overrides from the C-suite. If a vendor cannot pass my safety protocols, they do not get paid, period. You are asking for autonomy, Lydia says. You want to be outside the chain of command. I am asking for insulation, I correct her. I was approached last week by a competitor, a major national retailer based in Seattle. They have been trying to build an attribution engine like North Star for 3 years and failing. They offered me a very lucrative consulting retainer to come fix their stack. It is a bluff, but only slightly. I had coffee with a recruiter. Nothing more. But in this room, it lands like a grenade. Owen flinches. If we lose North Star right before Christmas... Exactly, I say. I do not want to leave. Owen, I built this engine, but I will not stay if my tools are being weaponized against me. The new license ensures that North Star serves the data, not the ego of the CEO's wife. Lydia reads the document in silence for a long minute. Then she looks at Owen. It is a clean contract, she says. Strict, but fair. And frankly, after what I saw on that projector screen, I think having an independent compliance check on our marketing spend is legally prudent. Owen nods vigorously. Graham has to sign it. If we do not have Lucy's safeguards in place, we are walking blind into SEC and FTC violations. Vivian's projections. Lucy is right. They were climbing into wire fraud territory. If we do not lock this down, we are all going to jail. I will draft the termination notice for Winterglow, Lydia says, standing up. Owen, go get Graham. We need signatures. 10 minutes later, I excuse myself to use the restroom while they brief Graham. I need a moment to breathe. The adrenaline is fading, leaving me feeling hollow and sharp, like a piece of carved glass. I push open the door to the executive ladies' room. It is a sanctuary of marble and soft lighting. I am washing my hands when the door opens behind me. I look up into the mirror. It is Vivian. She looks wrecked. Her perfect bun is fraying at the edges. Her eyes are red. The mascara slightly smudged in the corners. The arrogance from the morning. The fury from the boardroom, it is all gone. In its place is a terrifying, weaponized vulnerability. She walks over to the sink next to me, but does not turn on the water. She just looks at me in the mirror, her expression crumbling into something that looks like pity for herself. "I hope you are happy," she says, her voice trembling. I dry my hands with a paper towel. "Happiness has nothing to do with it. Vivian, you do not understand the pressure," she says, a tear leaking out and tracking down her cheek. "Everyone looks at me and sees the clothes and the parties. They do not see the work. They do not see what it is like to be Graham's wife, the expectations. I just wanted to do something real. I wanted to prove I could contribute." She turns to me, imploring. She reaches out as if to touch my arm, but pulls back. "It was just a marketing campaign. Lucy, maybe I pushed the numbers a little. Everyone does it. It is the industry. But you turned it into a federal case. You destroyed me over a bonus." I look at her. I really look at her. I see the narcissism encoded in her DNA. She truly believes she is the victim. She believes that her desire to feel important justifies stealing $9 million and lying to the world. She thinks that because she cried in a bathroom, I should soften. She thinks we are friends because we are both women in a hard building, but we are not friends. We are not even the same species. "You are right about one thing," I say, my voice quiet and steady. "I did not do this because of the bonus." "Then why?" she asks, sniffing. "Why humiliate me?" "Because you thought you could break the rules just because you married the man who signs the checks," I say. "You thought that because you are Vivian Calloway. Math did not apply to you. You thought you could silence the truth by cutting my pay." I toss the paper towel into the trash bin. It makes a soft thud. "You did not make a mistake, Vivian. You made a choice. You chose to fake the numbers. You chose to route money to your friends. You chose to stand on that stage and try to erase me." I turn to face her. She shrinks back slightly. "You canceled my bonus," I say. "The system canceled your campaign. It was impartial. It was fair. And it is over." I walk past her. She is still standing at the sink, sobbing softly, waiting for an audience that has already left the theater, back in the boardroom. The atmosphere is funereal. Graham is sitting at the table, staring at the documents Lydia has placed in front of him. He looks like he has aged 10 years in 2 hours. He does not look at me when I enter. He just picks up his pen. "Lydia explained the terms," he says, his voice hoarse. "We are terminating Winterglow. We are issuing the statement about the vendor integrity audit." "And the license?" I ask. "And the license?" He sighs. "Signal Harbor Analytics retains full IP control. We accept the new oversight protocols." He signs the termination order first. Then he signs the new master license agreement. I pick up the papers. There is one more document I need him to sign. It is a single page. "One last thing. Graham," I say, placing it in front of him. He blinks at it. "What is this?" "It is a memorandum of understanding," I explain. "It acknowledges, for the corporate record, that the termination of the Winterglow campaign was triggered specifically by the automated safeguards of the North Star system due to critical failures in vendor compliance. It states clearly that the decision was data-driven and not a result of human error or administrative discretion." Graham looks at Lydia. Lydia nods. "It protects the company." Graham: "It cements the proactive risk mitigation narrative we are selling to the press. If we say the system did it, we have to prove the system did it." That is true. But it also serves another purpose. It creates an immutable record that Vivian failed. It prevents her from ever rewriting history. 10 years from now, she cannot claim this was a strategic pivot or a creative difference. The paper says she was caught by the machine. Graham signs it. The scratch of the pen is loud in the quiet room. "Are we done?" he asks, dropping the pen. "We are done," I say. I gather my documents. I have my contract. I have my intellectual property. I have my reputation. "We will initiate an internal review of Velvet Lantern's billing practices starting Monday." Owen adds quietly. I will handle it personally. Good, I say. I walk towards the door. I do not say goodbye. There is no need for pleasantries. We have just negotiated a treaty after a war. Lucy, Graham calls out as my hand touches the door handle. I stop, but I do not turn around. The bonus, he says. I will make sure it is reinstated, with interest. I pause. It is a peace offering, a bribe, a plea for forgiveness. Keep it, Graham, I say. I open the door and step out into the hallway. I just signed a new consulting retainer with the company, I say over my shoulder. My rate just went up 300%. I think I will be fine. I let the door close behind me. The click of the latch is the most satisfying sound I have ever heard. The Monday morning special board meeting does not feel like a corporate gathering. It feels like a tribunal. The air in the room is so heavy that it presses against my lungs. Outside, the blizzard that started during the crisis negotiations has blanketed Chicago in white, turning the view from the 45th floor into a wall of shifting static. The table is full. The entire board of directors is present, either in person or looming on high-definition screens from New York and London. Graham sits at the head, looking like a man who is waiting for a medical diagnosis he already knows is terminal. Vivian is seated to his right. She has attempted to regain her armor. She is wearing a sharp navy suit, her hair pulled back tight, a portfolio of PR recovery strategies open in front of her. She is poised, anxious, and ready to spin. I stand at the opposite end of the room. I am not using the podium. I am standing directly in front of the main screen, holding the remote clicker. I am not here to argue. I am here to narrate. Good morning, I say. My voice is steady. You have all received the executive summary regarding the termination of the Winterglow campaign. I am here to walk you through the data that necessitated that decision. I click the remote. The screen behind me fills with a clean, brutal timeline. 3 weeks ago, I begin. The projected return on investment for Winterglow shifted overnight. It went from a predicted flatline to a promised 18% revenue lift. This projection was used to secure board approval for a $9.2 million media spend. I click again. The screen changes to a log view. This shift was not driven by market data, I explain. It was a manual override. The logs show that the projection was hard-coded by an external administrator account associated with Velvet Lantern Creative. The vendor entered the number they needed to see, not the number the data supported. Vivian clears her throat loudly. This is a mischaracterization, she says, her voice tight but projecting confidence. We were adjusting for intangible brand lift, standard practice for high-concept campaigns. You cannot model magic on a spreadsheet. Lucy, I do not look at her. I look at the chairman of the board. We can model traffic, I say. And that is where the magic fell apart. I click to the next slide. It shows the launch morning activity. The red spikes of fraud warnings are jagged and undeniable. At 9 o'clock yesterday morning, the campaign went live. Within 7 minutes, North Star detected that 85% of the incoming traffic was non-human. We were paying premium rates for ads that were being viewed by server farms, not shoppers. The influencers we hired were largely dormant accounts repopulated with stock photos. They were experimental placements, Vivian interrupts, leaning forward. We were testing new markets. Every innovative campaign has anomalies in the first hour. You panicked. You pulled the plug before the algorithm could optimize. You cost this company millions in potential revenue because you got scared of a few bots. It was not a few bots. Vivian, I say. It was a network. I click to the next slide. This is the one that sucks the air out of the room. It is the financial map I built, showing the flow of money from Solstice to Velvet Lantern, and then immediately out to the shell companies. This is not an optimization issue, I say, my voice dropping an octave. This is a vendor integrity issue. $1.5 million was routed to Aurora Horizon Media. As I demonstrated to legal counsel yesterday, this entity has no office, no staff, and is registered to a college associate of Mrs. Calloway. Vivian slams her hand on the table. That is slander. You are twisting relationships into conspiracies. I leverage my network to get us the best deals. That is what a creative director does. And do you also create the influencers? I ask. I pull up the profile for Style by Sarah 22. This influencer was paid $50,000 for a series of posts. The account was created 2 weeks ago. The IP address for the account creation matches the IP address of the Velvet Lantern co-working space. The room goes silent. Even the directors on the video screens seem to lean in. This is not just bad management. This is faking the supply to meet the demand. Vivian opens her mouth to scream, to deny, to throw another cloud of buzzwords into the air. She is telling the truth. The voice comes from the side of the table. It is Eleanor Pace. The veteran board member is sitting with her hands clasped over a thick binder. She is not looking at the screen. She is looking at Graham. After the Christmas party, Eleanor says, her voice raspy and authoritative, I was unsettled by a comment Lucy made. She told me the system only validates what it is allowed to see. So, I took the liberty of engaging an external forensic audit firm on Friday morning. I asked them to spot-check a subset of the Winterglow vendor list. Vivian freezes. She did not know this. She thought she was fighting me. She did not know she was fighting the board. Their findings match North Star's data exactly, Eleanor continues, opening her binder. Phantom vendors, inflated engagement metrics, circular billing. Eleanor pauses, and then she delivers the second blow. But they found something else, Graham. Something Lucy did not see because she does not have access to the creative files. Eleanor slides a glossy brochure down the table. It slides across the mahogany and stops in front of Graham. That is a pitch deck, Eleanor says. Velvet Lantern Creative used it to pitch a luxury hotel chain in Miami last week. The photography in that deck. It was shot by Solstice photographers, in Solstice studios, on Solstice time. The models are wearing Solstice prototypes. I stare at the brochure. I did not know this. Vivian has been using our budget to build her agency's portfolio, Eleanor says, her voice ice cold. She repurposed company resources staff, equipment, and inventory to pitch future clients for her private business. That is not just self-dealing, Graham. That is theft of service. It is a direct violation of her fiduciary duties as an officer of this company. Graham looks at the brochure. He looks at the photos. He recognizes them. He closes his eyes. I did not know, Graham whispers. You should have known, Owen Ramirez says. Owen speaks up from his seat at the end of the table. He looks relieved, as if a weight has been lifted. I flagged the numbers 3 weeks ago. Graham, Owen says. I told you they were impossible. You told me to trust the vision. I considered resigning. I had my letter typed out. The only reason I stayed is because I knew Lucy would catch it. I trusted the system more than I trusted the leadership. The condemnation is total. The board members are exchanging glances. The silence is not empty. It is full of decisions being made. Vivian stands up. Her chair scrapes loudly against the floor. This is a coup, she hisses, pointing a shaking finger at me. Do you not see what she is doing? She is jealous. She is a bitter, mid-level manager who is angry that she is not the star. So she orchestrated this witch hunt. She manipulated the data to humiliate me. Sit down, Vivian, Eleanor says. It is not a request. No, Vivian shouts. You are listening to a woman who held the company hostage. She threatened to shut down our systems. She is the threat here, not me. She saved us, Eleanor says calmly. Eleanor turns to the rest of the board. Let the record show that Lucy Rivera identified a massive regulatory liability. She could have taken this data to the SEC. She could have taken it to the press. She could have taken it to our competitors. If she had, our stock would be trading at pennies this morning. Eleanor looks at me with a newfound respect. Instead, she built internal safeguards. She forced a controlled failure. She gave us an exit ramp that allows us to claim we caught the fraud ourselves. She protected the company when its own CEO would not. Graham flinches. I move, Eleanor says, addressing the room, that the Winter Glow campaign be formally and permanently cancelled. Seconded, says a voice from the London screen. I move that Velvet Lantern Creative be suspended as an approved vendor immediately, pending a full forensic accounting of all billings to date. Seconded. And I move, Eleanor continues, her eyes locked on Graham, that an independent investigation be opened into the role of the Chief Creative Officer, and that Graham, you consider your position as CEO pending the findings of that inquiry. Graham nods slowly. He does not fight. He knows he is lost. He looks at Vivian. Vivian, he says softly, you need to leave the room. Vivian looks at him. She looks at the board. She looks at the ruined campaign on the screen behind me. She realizes, finally, that the reality distortion field has collapsed. Her charm, her style, her name, none of it works here. This is a room of math, and the equation does not balance. She grabs her portfolio. She gathers her coat. She maintains her posture, but her eyes are wild. She walks to the door. As she passes me, she stops. She leans in close, so only I can hear her. The smell of her expensive perfume is cloying and sharp. You have ruined my name in this town, she whispers, the words dripping with venom. I will never work in this city again. I look at her. I do not feel triumph. I do not feel joy. I just feel the cool, quiet satisfaction of a system that has finished its processing. No, I reply softly. You did that. I just made sure the right people saw the receipts. She stares at me for 1 second longer, hate radiating off her like heat. Then she turns and storms out. The heavy door slams shut behind her. The sound echoes in the boardroom. Final and absolute. I turn back to the table. The screen behind me is still glowing with the evidence of her failure. Now, I say to the board, pressing the clear button on the remote, blanking the screen to a peaceful, empty white. Shall we discuss the Q1 recovery plan? The days following the board vote were not chaotic. They were clinical. The blizzard had passed, leaving the city in a sharp, bright, frozen silence. My new office was the executive boardroom, where I sat for hours with Lydia Forrester and the external audit team. We were not colleagues. We were surgeons removing a tumor. We finalized the formal termination notice for the Winter Glow campaign. This was not the press release for the public. This was the legal document for the permanent record. Lydia and I co-authored it. Every word was precise, cold, and legally scrubbed of emotion. It was a masterpiece of corporate neutralization, the notice, which was signed by every member of the board, cited material concerns regarding vendor integrity and significant performance misrepresentation identified during a routine audit. It explicitly named North Star's automated safeguards as the mechanism of detection. It was a permanent, immutable record that the system, not gossip, had killed the campaign. Vivian's masterpiece was not just cancelled. It was erased and replaced with a memo about her own incompetence. The public relations team, of course, spun the story brilliantly. They released a statement about Solstice Meridian's disciplined strategic pivot and its unwavering commitment to data transparency. The narrative they sold was that our internal controls were so advanced. We had proactively identified and cut a non-performing campaign before it wasted significant shareholder money. It made Solstice look smart, agile, and responsible. But inside the building, the spin did not matter. The internal staff, from the mailroom to the marketing floor, knew the truth. The story was simple, and it was potent. The CEO's wife tried to publicly destroy the numbers girl over a Christmas bonus. In response, the numbers girl turned off her $9.2 million campaign. The whispers that followed me in the hallway were no longer pity. They were a startled, quiet respect. My team looked at me with a new kind of loyalty, the culture of fear that Vivian had built. The idea that vibes and vision could crush data evaporated in a single day, 4 days after the board meeting. Graham Calloway requested my presence in his office. He looked smaller. The room, usually vibrant with Vivian's decorating choices, felt empty and gray. "Lucy," he said, gesturing to a chair. I remained standing. "The board has accepted Vivian's resignation," he said, staring at a spot on his desk. She will be focusing on personal projects." I said nothing. "We are restructuring," he continued, fumbling with a pen. "The board and I agree. We need stronger internal controls. We need your voice, your integrity, in the C-suite, not just in a department." He looked up, attempting to put on his CEO face, but his eyes were tired. "We are creating a new position, effective immediately, Chief Data and Integrity Officer. It reports directly to me and to the Audit Committee. It comes with a massive pay increase and a significant equity package. It is your job. Lucy, we need you to stay." It was the ultimate offer, the seat at the table, the promotion I had earned 5 years ago. It was the golden prize, meant to lock me and North Star into Solstice forever. "No," I said. Graham blinked. His face fell. "No, Lucy. This is the C-suite. This is the win." "It is a job," I corrected him, "and I am no longer interested in it." I placed a leather-bound document on his desk. It was not a resignation, it was a proposal. "I reactivated Signal Harbor Analytics 2 days ago," I said. "As it turns out, word travels fast. I have spent the last 48 hours on the phone. A lot of retailers are suddenly very interested in an engine that can stop fraud before it starts." I let that sink in. "I have 3 interested national clients," I continued. "One of them, a very large retailer based in Seattle, asked me a simple question: can you make sure we never have a winter glow situation?" Graham looked at the proposal, his face pale. "You are leaving. I am changing the terms," I said. "I will not be an employee of Solstice Meridian. I will not report to you, Graham. I will not have my data overruled by the next visionary you decide to bring in. However," I tapped the cover of the proposal, "Solstice Meridian is going to become my first and largest client." It was a new multi-year licensing and consulting agreement. Signal Harbor Analytics would manage the entirety of Solstice's data integrity and marketing optimization stack. I would retain full, non-negotiable intellectual property control. My terms were clear. My team would be insulated, and my retainer, listed clearly on page 4, made my canceled Christmas bonus look like a rounding error. He had no choice. The board knew it. Without North Star, the company was blind. I had just traded a golden cage for the keys to the entire building. Vivian stepped away from all public roles, sidelined by the ongoing investigation into Velvet Lantern. She faded from the society pages, officially to focus on personal projects. 2 nights later, an email appeared in my personal inbox. It was from her. The subject line was empty. "You didn't have to destroy my campaign." She still did not get it. She still thought the campaign, her vision, was the thing that mattered. I replied with one line: "I canceled the fraud, not the Christmas." On the last working day before the holidays, I walked through the lobby of the Solstice building. I was not an employee, I was a consultant, there to finalize the contract with Lydia. As I left, I saw them, in a dark corner by the service elevators, stacked in a pile, the leftover Winterglow props, giant glittering snowflakes, banners with Vivian's face on them, props for a show that had closed on opening night. The $9.2 million campaign, existing only as a line item in Owen's new budget, terminated. I am in my new office now. It is not a glass tower. It is a modest, bright space above a bookstore in my neighborhood. I have simple white lights strung along the window. North Star hums quietly on my monitor, its dashboard's a calm, healthy green, monitoring the real Solstice campaign, the one my team built in 3 days. Based on truth, I am signing a new client contract, the one from Seattle. I pick up my mug. It is full of cheap coffee from the cafe downstairs. I toast myself, alone in my quiet office, and I think, with a small, satisfied smile, they canceled my bonus to prove a point. I canceled their campaign to prove a fact: you do not cut the person who holds the off switch. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Boss Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.